All right, hey, how's it going, Patreon? This is the first of the two exclusive tutorials for this month. We're going to be doing some geometry nodes fun for both of them. Geometry nodes is hot, it's cool, it's useful, and today we're making this interesting model. We're also going to make a scene around it. When I originally made this is the animation I made with it. Really cool kind of volumetric craziness. But back to the model. This is basically the node tree that we're going to be making. And my cat's chasing a rubber band. But yeah, this is what we're going to be making. It's relatively simple and it's really, really cool. I love this process. My cat just goes crazy when I record. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and get a new file here. And I am in Blender 3.0.0. So yeah, let's go ahead and clear out everything from your scene. And we're going to go to the plane. I'm just going to ignore the jingling in the background. All right, so geometry nodes, we're going to kill this window right here. We're going to click new, delete the group input. Just a lot of deleting. Mesh primitives, and we're going to get a cylinder. This is my first time actually doing a tutorial with the geometry nodes cylinder. Really didn't think about using it because I'd done some other stuff. In gone, so on the fill type, we want nothing because we want this to be totally hollow, which is really fun. You can non-destructively delete those front faces. Usually you have to delete them destructively. I'm going to hit RX90. Now here's a fun little thing to remember. Now we want the depth. So typically when I'm making these loops, I'll take the X or the Y, whatever, to stretch it. And I'll do it by an increment of 8. But if we go here to the depth and we type in 8, actually, if I take a plane here and I hit S8, it only scaled it by an increment of 4. So just when you're trying to get exact here, just do double what you want. So if I want this to be scaled by 8, I really need to scale it here by 16. Now we have that. So on my vertices, I'm going to do 6. So we have this really nice little sci-fi looking vibe. And then here on subdividing it from the specific node, you'll have your side segments. But the issue is I want there to be, subdivision going this way as well. So the way we handle that is to get a Shift A search subdivide mesh, and it'll basically now give you those square faces within it, rather than adding it like an edge split, whatever. So now we have that, but I'm going to go ahead and bring my side segments maybe to 4 and leave it like that. So now we're going to go ahead and start making this look cool. So what we're going to need to get is a separate mesh. So Shift A search SCP. Separate geometry, and now let's get a random selection. Random value. So now we have this random value here. We're going to go from float to Boolean, so we just get this one number here rather than a bunch of settings that we don't need. So plug that into the selection and then bring that probability up to get more faces or fewer, whatever you like. But we can play with that a little later, maybe play with your seed to get more gaps. But this is what we're working with. It's really cool. So now let's go ahead and continue this process. We do need to go and click face instead of point. It's really important. And otherwise it's not going to work. All right, so let's go here to the wireframe view. You can see the geometry we have now, how dense it is. So you can see how dense our geometry is. What we're going to do here is going to join geometry. So join geometry, we'll put it there. And first thing we need to do is on this line, basically you have your selection and the inverted. If we plug the invert into join geometry, now we get all of our geometry back. That's kind of how that works. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. So what we want to do is subdivide this section. So we're gonna go ahead and get a subdivide mesh. We're gonna plug it there. There we go, we've subdivided that, but we haven't subdivided this. And so now what we do, now what we have is this really interesting variation of subdivided mesh, basically. So if you bring your probability to 0, you have that. If you bring your probability to 1, you have all that. So now we can kind of pick what parts are subdivided and what parts are not. So that's pretty much how that works. Now let's go ahead and get an edge split, or split edges in this case. We'll plug that there. Now we're going to start designing this to look cool because really nothing's happening. So we split the edges so that when we add a smooth modifier, we have this fun grid. And so I'm going to go back here. I'm going to click on the geometry nodes workspace, and I do want to go ahead and add in another separate geometry. I'm just going to duplicate these guys here and then put it right Looks like we just need to plug it right there. Plug a random value here so we can add some more character to the entirety of this scene. Something like this. So now we have this. A lot of character. It looks really cool because I wanted to cut some holes into this whole thing. That's our nodes, basically. Now let's go ahead and get in a solidify. So we'll add in our solidify modifier right here and then bring that thickness to whatever your heart desires. And then let's get a bevel. Add modifier bevel. Bring that value back up. And then maybe bring the segments up a little bit. And just kind of play with your bevel till you like it. There we go. We've created that. One more thing that I want to do here is I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift D and make a duplicate of this. I'm going to go back to geometry nodes here. So we need to click on that geometry nodes modifier and click the 2 so we can make a new geometry nodes workspace. And then right here on radius, I want to bring this radius up, but still it's going to stay within that. So when we bring that radius up, I'm going to go ahead and bring that level to 0 on this subdivide mesh. So now we get fewer faces. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring my probability back. I just want a couple faces surrounding my scene here. Now we have that. I'm going to go ahead and make the thickness on the solidify for these guys really big. And then this radius needs to be more. What's going to happen is we're going to have an area light going down, and these are going to basically stop that light when it hits that. And it's a really, really cool effect when that happens. So now what we can do is start doing our instancing down the line. So I'm going to hit this. I'm going to hit M, new collection, call it loop, the classic process. So now what we're going to do is hit Shift A, collection instance, and click loop. And what's really important, if you've never followed my loop tutorials, hold down Control and bring this down the line like that. So it's going to need to look like that much of a gap. If you hold down Control, it's going to snap to the grid. So right there, that's going to create a perfect loop. So it may take a little bit, but make sure before moving it, you hold down Control, then move it, and you can guarantee it'll look perfect. Now we have this scene. I'm going to hit the tilde key, which is right above the tab key. I'm going to hit front, Shift A, add my camera. So now I'm just going to hold down Control on my camera and bring it back. So we're at the end here, which looks like it's going to be -8. If you click on the camera, go to the little transform settings, -8. That's where we want to be. Now that we're here, I'm going to click on my camera, go to my camera settings and make this a lot wider. I'm going to hit G, middle click, and just see how this is going to look. Pretty cool. So let's go ahead and animate this really quickly. I'm going to need 120 frames. We'll do 150 just to stay safe. I think that'll be quick enough. We'll go back to frame 0. Go to your edit preferences here in the animation. Make sure your default interpolation is on linear so there's no speeding up, slowing down at the beginning and the end. So let's go ahead and animate that. So we're here at the -8, so we'll need to end it at the +8 to make it a loop. So click that. We'll go to the very end of our scene and type in just 8. That goes at the very end of that instance. So if we hit 0, yeah, that's a pretty good speed. I like that. Sometimes I'd make it slower, but we can see now we have a perfect loop. Now let's go ahead and light and shade this. So for my viewport, I'm going to use cycles for this. You can use Eevee if you'd like. It's going to look a little bit different, but you can still follow along. So here on my viewport samples, I'm going to go to 32 so I don't get overloaded. Turn off that noise threshold. And then for my end samples, I'm going to do 500. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go here to the cycles view, and we're going to go ahead and introduce an area light. Bring it all the way up. What we want to do is make sure that this area light is above these big pieces because I want these big pieces to block the light at times, giving you this really cool dynamic lighting effect. That's the main purpose of that. So now that we're there, we're going to go back here to the cycles view, give that light maybe 2000. It's going to need to be really bright. Here in the world settings, go to black, on volume, click on none and go to principled volume. like that, and then bring that density to something like this. So now we have this whole dense scene. I'm going to go to the material preview so we can quickly add a material. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to click new, make the base color, maybe kind of to the middle dark, make it metallic, and make it a little less rough. That's all we're really going to need. So now that we've made this material, we need to go to geometry nodes, go to our geometry nodes modifier, go to the material preview here, and we need to type in set material. So you click on set material, plug it there, and then here we'll just click that material. So now it has applied that, and we'll do the same thing here. I'm just going to go ahead and Control C on that node, Control V, and now we have that. So if we go back here to the cycles preview, this is what our scene is looking like. Two things that I want to do. I'm going to go here to my scene world, scene lights. So two things I want to do is here in the camera, we're going to go down here to color management and go on a look to high contrast. It didn't really change much here, but here in the cycles view, it did do something pretty cool. And then on the area light, I want to make it a slight blue. Only a slight blue, that was too much. There we go. So now if we go click on the scene here and we press play, oh wait, last thing we need to do is click on the area light, hold down Control, click on the camera, Control P, parent to the object. So now the area light is going to be following our camera, creating a perfect loop. And so if I press play, notice that lighting effect. That's what I wanted you guys to see. If we go back, pretty cool lighting effect, and we can kind of go through here. You'll notice another half lighting effect right there where it's cutting that light. So that's the whole point of this, those bigger pieces, not only to create this interesting parallax effect, you can see how things are moving quicker than the smaller ones at the end, but you can even see in Eevee, it's creating a really cool effect. So if you want to render this in Eevee, you certainly can. It's going to look pretty awesome. But that's pretty much it. That's the scene. If we want to see how this looks rendered in cycles, I'm just going to go ahead and hit the render button here. This is the cycles render. I would add more detail to the material. In my case, I used the galvanized steel from the real-time materials pack, but you can use any material you want on this. So, free to use your creativity and do some cool stuff. This is how it looks. It's really cool. It's really fun. Add lights. I'm going to leave this relatively blank so you can come up with your own ideas to make this look really awesome. But yeah, thank you guys for supporting on Patreon. We'll see you in the next tutorial.